Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I hope everyone can hear me okay. My name is David Chernyavsky, and I'm a panelist for today's webinar, which will be focused around which Microsoft ERP is right for me. To provide some context around today's webinar, I will be walking through a short PowerPoint around a few myths and facts when comparing Dynamics Business Central compared to Dynamics Finance and Supply Chain Management, formerly known as Finance and Operations. I will then be handing it over to Eric for a Dynamics 365 Business Central demonstration, and then we will have Hope walk through a demonstration of Finance and Supply Chain Management. I wanted to mention that this call is being recorded and you will receive a copy to your email along with a survey. If you could please fill it out and provide some feedback, we would be very grateful. The questions we are going to be talking about today are often asked by our prospects and how individuals decide which route they may go down from a Microsoft ERP perspective when trying to determine which is the right fit for them. As we're walking through the slides or demonstration, please do not hesitate to send over questions into the chat and we will get them answered. So jumping over into our first question, is your organization small to mid-size? If yes, then maybe Business Central is a better fit. But if no, then maybe Finance and Supply Chain Management is for you. Well, this one is mostly true. And I say this because businesses who use Finance and Supply Chain Management are often perceived as larger or maybe more complex businesses than those that use Business Central. And normally, as a general rule, it is true that small to mid-sized organizations are often more of a good fit for Business Central compared to Finance and Supply Chain Management. But actually, it's the type of business requirements and functionality needs that are more important in making a decision and not just the size of the business. So as an example, Business Central is absolutely fine with more than 200 users as well as high volumes of transactions. So now jumping over into our second question, does your organization have multiple legal entities? One would think if yes, then FSCM is for you. If not, then maybe BC is your route. But once again, we have an answer that is mostly true because it really just depends. So Finance and Supply Chain Management offers a full multi-company and intercompany functionality within one database with shared tables across organizations. This setup really offers the ultimate option when slicing and dicing data, including but not limited to consolidations. However, I would like to note that Business Central is not without these capabilities, and it offers a multi-company option with separate companies, along with intercompany functionality that is also available. And then jumping over to my third and last question before I pass it over to Eric to demonstrate some aspects of Business Central. Often, it's around organization's budget and if they have a limited one when it comes to the software and implementation expenses. Well, if you guessed the answer would be mostly true, then you are correct because it ultimately comes down to your requirements to determine which is best for your organizations. So some requirements might push you towards Finance and Supply Chain Management. But if you're trying hard enough, you can make Business Central your solution, and you might actually end up paying more for it compared to FSCM out of the box. So it really just depends. So when I hear these questions from our prospects, I often want to reiterate to the team that we hear them, and it just really comes down to the types of business requirements that are specific to your organization that ultimately is the most important piece when making a decision around which Microsoft ERP is right for you. So I am going to stop sharing my screen and I will now pass it over to Eric to jump into Business Central.
All right, thank you, David. So as David mentioned, we're going to give you an overview of Business Central and an overview of Finance and Supply Chain. Just based on limited time, it's going to be very high level, but we're more than happy to kind of circle back one-on-one and dive deeper into any areas if you want. One primary thing I'm going to be focusing on is really the Microsoft connectivity between Business Central. So I'm going to start by just launching into Business Central. So I'm going to connect into Edge here. Business Central is browser agnostic though, so you can use any browser you want. The only reason why I use Edge again is to kind of show you how Microsoft is making all their products kind of talk to each other. So I'm signed into Edge with my work account here, my domain account. When I click on the waffle and go into all of my apps, expand this out to everything, you can see Business Central up here in the upper right hand corner sits with everything that I'm licensed for in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So I've got my Excel sitting in the same place, my Outlook sitting in the same place. If we're running Power BI or doing SharePoint, all of my licensed apps sit here. So Business Central is just a licensed app in that ecosystem. When I launch in, and now again, I could absolutely bookmark Business Central, just quickly go into it that way. I don't have to do it this way. But what this is also showing you now is Business Central does give us multiple sandbox environments. So this is a way for me to connect into those different environments, completely separate from production. But I'll go ahead and log into production. And again, what I just kind of want to do is give you a quick tour of Business Central, some user navigation, high-level functionality, and then we'll send it over to Hope. So this is my home page. This is based on the role I'm in. So right now I'm business manager. I'm actually going to flip it over and show you that there is some manufacturing capabilities in Business Central as well. But what you see here in the upper left-hand corner is my company name. Whenever I click back on this company name, I always get back to this dashboard. And since I am a business manager, I'm really concerned with everything cash in, cash out related. So some navigation, I can click the drop down here and I've got everything finance related. So again, Business Central is very feature rich. I've got my GL, can do fixed assets in here, run budgeting, built-in financial reporting tool, click on cash management. This is everything cash related. I can do cash flow forecasting, bring in our customer payments, produce our vendor payments, do reconciliations in here. Under sales, I've got my customers, items, charges, quotes, orders, invoices. On the purchasing side, same thing, vendors, quotes, orders, invoices. Now, Business Central, the transactions can flow however they need to in your organization. If you are a service-based organization, everything's just an invoice potentially. If you do need to process quotes for certain customers, other customers that are going to come in as orders, they can definitely process that way. So it's flexible to how processes and documents need to flow. I also have the ability to bookmark any page that I commonly go to, and these can be reports or these can be pages. So if I go and look at my vendors, for example, click on my vendor page, this is going to take me into what we call a list view here. These are all throughout the system, whether I'm looking at transactions, in this case, vendor records, items, shipping, posted shipments. All of these list views give me multiple things I can do in here. I can search. You're going to have more than 8 or 9 vendors. So if I'm looking for a specific vendor and I know consultants is in the name, type that in, finds first up consultants. Maybe I just know that Carol's the primary contact. I can start typing in Carol, finds Boyer for me. I'm able to change my sorting in here, so I want to see my vendors with a higher balance. I can create filters in here, so I've got the ability to really filter on multiple fields in here. Here's all my other available fields. Off of these filters, I can save these as favored views. So if I just want to look at my vendors that are carrying a balance, I can click on that and see that information. I've also got these icons up here as well. And again, you're going to see this all throughout the system. Really, any list view, I can dump this data out to Excel. So again, whether I'm looking at vendors or transactions or journal entries, what have you, I can get that data into an Excel file very easily. I've also got this ability to edit in Excel, and this is going to function a little bit differently. What Edit in Excel is going to give me the capabilities to do is now actually integrate and connect real time to my data through Excel. So earlier I'm using a web browser as my user interface. I'm going to use Excel as my user interface. When I click enable editing up here, it's going to see that it's going to authenticate and make sure, does Eric have permissions to do what he's attempting to do in the system here? Can he edit and modify vendors? And again, you will see edit in Excel all throughout the system, including the option to edit posted transactions. Now with posted transactions, there's very limited things I can edit. In the case of payables, it's maybe a due date or 1099 amount if we got that wrong or didn't have it set up front. But in most cases, I can't edit a lot of data on posted transactions. Same like with vendors here. If we look at this balance field here, you can see that field is red. That is a sensitive field, so I can't go and modify that. But otherwise, if I come in here, maybe I've got addresses in another Excel file, do a VLOOKUP, pull that in. Maybe my phone numbers, I want to format this separately. I can, because this is Excel, I can just change my cell formatting, publish those changes up, just go ahead and change a number here real quick for Boyer. I'll go 4315, make that change. Let's make this one all 9s. Once those changes are done, I'll go ahead and click publish down here in the lower right hand corner. It's going to push those changes back up into Business Central, tells me it's successful. When I come back into BC here and refresh this page, you'll see those 2 phone numbers will now be updated. So again, this is a way that I could push transactions into the system as well, because Edit Excel does exist for unposted journal entries, payables transactions, sales quotes, what have you. If I also drill back on here, I can look at the vendor balance. So again, same icon in here. Maybe this is some information I want to share to teams. So I can see this vendor we owe some money to, or maybe it's on the AR side. We have a customer that has an outstanding balance. I want to figure out, why is this happening? I can go even deeper as well. So if I want to go all the way back to the original invoice, maybe I've got questions specifically on this invoice. Well, this is again where I can share information through Teams, or in this case, I'm going to just copy a link. If I pop into Teams and share this link over to Jeff, just give it a second here. You can see it pops up that preview window. I send this information over to Jeff. Jeff receives this. He can click on this details button here. And now it's actually going to redirect Jeff into Business Central via Teams. So now I'm actually using Teams as my user interface for Business Central. And now we can make sure we're having a dialogue on this exact document we're questioning. We don't have to have all this back and forth phone calls. We can shoot it over through Teams. I can add context in here, messages in here. Maybe I just want to add some notes in here as well. I am interacting with this document real time, again, through Teams. So I can certainly add some text, some notes, some comments in here if I wanted to. All right, last thing I just want to point out too with some of the Microsoft integrations is Outlook. So if I come into here, I've actually got an email that came from our vendor. So Eric Vigasa is a vendor for Boyer & Associates, and they are following up on this past due AP invoice. This works on the customer side as well. If the customer is asking about a quote, an invoice, a return, if they put that document number in here correctly, Outlook can actually detect that this is a transaction in Business Central. So when I click on that document number, it's actually going to pop up that invoice, and now I'm using Outlook to interact with my Business Central data. So this is real-time invoice. I can actually come in here, and maybe there's some comments out here about why have we not paid this. I can see there is some comments, so now I can go ahead and reply to Eric. I've also got the ability to come up to contact insights here. So this is now going to redirect me into that vendor master record. Again, this works on the customer side, where I can now see some summary information regarding our vendor in this case. So I can look at attachments that we have. I could pull up this master service agreement. I would be able to look at their balance. I can see all of our invoices. The red's an indicator it's a past due invoice. Click on one of those invoices. This is the one I'm looking for. Maybe I want to pop this out so I can see it bigger. And now I could share this through Teams if I needed to. So for questioning what's going on with this transaction, I've got ability to interact with all of my different areas of Business Central via Outlook in this case. So let's look at a couple transaction windows. Again, I'll pop this one up again. This is what a lot of the sales and purchasing screens look like. So I do have the ability to have multiple lines on sales orders, on quotes, on purchase orders. I can set up items. Items can be service-based or non-inventory as well. So we don't have to have tracking on-hand quantities. Can have multiple locations, can track bin, lot numbers, lot expiration dates. So again, a lot of functionality there. We have the ability to do some demand planning in here as well. So we can set up reorder points on our items. If I want to go and create a new transaction, let me just pop into a sales order screen. Here's all my different sales orders. So I could do a new transaction here. If I pull up an existing one, because this is an unposted sales order, I've got the ability to edit this document. So I can have attachments in the system. Attachments can get stored directly in the Business Central database, but if you do a lot of attachments, that can consume a lot of drive space or disk space with Business Central. So we actually have the ability to move these into like SharePoint or even Azure Blob if that's the case. But that way we've got all of our files available to us through that transaction. Then here's where I can add lines to this item, so to the sales order. So I can have items. Maybe I want to put another item on here. I'm a furniture company, so I need a chair to add to this. I can just start typing in that chair, and Business Central is going to filter this list down. I've also got the ability to book directly to GL accounts, or maybe I want to actually build resources out. So I have the ability to toggle these different types of values. So again, if you're a service-based organization and you don't want to do anything at all with inventory, I can book directly to my revenue account here. You may want to put this to a job sales account, start typing that in, and now I'm able to record that transaction here. We've got approvals all throughout the system as well. So if I need to route this through for approval, we can get those approvals done, then the order will release. If I have warehouse requirements, I can actually create a warehouse shipment. So this will create a separate document that the people on my warehouse need to pick the stock from, pack it up, ship it out. Once this gets shipped out, then I can come back here and actually process and post this invoice and email an invoice off to our customer then. Another option I have as well for data entry, again, maybe you are just kind of more of that service-based organization. If I go and do a purchase journal in this case, I don't need to have a lot of line items. I just do vendor invoices. This is a screen I can do that data entry in. With these types of grids, whether I'm doing a sales transaction, a journal entry, a bank transfer, any of these grids, I can actually copy and paste from Excel into here. So if I pull up, I've got a template here. The key with this copy and paste is I have to make sure that my columns align up with my Excel files, what I have here. The reason why that's key is Business Central does give me the ability, if I click on this gear icon, to personalize my pages. So I can actually move fields around. I can add additional fields in here. I can hide some fields if there's certain things that just aren't important to me and I don't need to worry about it. I can modify this layout to really make it look how I need it to look to get my job done. We do have the ability to secure that if you need to, so we don't have to have it be the wild, wild west. But if I just come in here, let's expand that out here. I'm gonna go ahead and copy these cells. I'm gonna create 3 vendor invoices with that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and paste. There it's created my transaction. So you can actually see a couple invoices here are 1-line entries. I can offset the expense right on the same line as that transaction. This invoice here, I actually wanna split that expense to different departments. So here's where you can see how Business Central is handling what we call dimensions to kind of build out that chart of accounts. If I go ahead and preview the posting here, you'll see with that copy and paste, I'm creating 3 vendor invoices. So there's those 3 detailed invoices with my dollar amount. And then I'm getting my full GL impact here as well. So there's that one invoice that I actually split to those 2 different accounts. Last thing I just want to show, I'll go through this homepage kind of quickly here, but I've got some fact boxes in here. I've got some dollar amounts where I can set thresholds up. So right now our open AR is looking good. If this got up to 100,000, I could actually have this flip red on me. So I can set these thresholds based on our company. And then when I click on that, I get into now another list view. So now this is showing me all of my past due AR invoices. If this is information I need in Excel, I can certainly do that. I can see any kind of in-process orders on here. I would be able to see my approval requests in these fact boxes. And then I've got some KPI reports in here as well. So I've got different aging reports. Maybe I want to put a cash flow in here. I can drill down onto these areas and see the detailed transactions making up that amount. I've got the ability to link to a Power BI report as well in here. I can actually pop this out and now navigate between my different areas of this Power BI report. So maybe I want to look at win-loss deals, pipeline leaderboard. With Power BI, this could actually be data coming from outside of Business Central even. So maybe I have some Business Central data, I have some Dynamics sales, used to be called CRM data that I need to pull in. Maybe I've got stuff in Excel as well. I can consolidate all that data in Power BI and then do some reporting on it. Last thing I just want to show is I'm going to flip this role now. And again, this is something you absolutely can control. We don't allow people to change their roles, but if I flip over to manufacturing manager, you're going to see how my page now changes and adjusts to be everything now manufacturing focused, because that's my job. That's what I got to look at. So here's where I've got my production orders in process. See here under design, I can set up my production bombs. I can have my routings, my raw material items. Under capacities, I can have my work centers, my machine centers. I'd be able to track my capacity in here. I've got one order that's in process here. So if I click on that, you can see these are my open orders that I have. And then again, on the line, I'd be able to see my components. Maybe I've got my different routings. Looks like we haven't built this one out yet, so my components aren't there. But I would have the ability to adjust these templates as well if I need to make any kind of item substitutions. And even from here, I'd be able to create that warehouse pick request. So if we need to go out to the warehouse, pull those components in, and now start assembling our finished good, we're certainly able to do that. So again, a lot of high level information, just kind of wanted to see some of the functionality within Business Central. We're more than happy to dive deeper in. With that though, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Hope. So Hope, I'll make you a presenter, and if you wanna
Okay. Good
go
job,
ahead from
Eric.
there.
Good job. I actually learned something. I do not believe that D365 F&O or FSCM has the ability to interface with Teams yet, but I'm going to have to check feature management, but that was pretty cool. So can you see my screen, Eric?
See your screen. Yep.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is what FSCM, and I'm just going to say F&O because up here they still have it finance and operations. I'm going to call it F&O until they change it to FSCM because that's difficult to say. But this is the home page that you would come into, and it is a dashboard of dashboards, if you will. It has workspaces, and these workspaces, there's about 80 of them or a little more than that come out of the box. And if you look at them, you can see that they're actually process oriented. You can see there's customer invoicing, customer payments, master planning, feature management was one of the ones I wanted to I mentioned just now to see if something was in here. Both of these products are web-based, and they do get ongoing updates from Microsoft. And D365 F&O allows you to pick and choose. You'll get the updates, but you can choose when to enable them. And you see some of the functionality. When you click on it, you can learn more and go into help about it, decide if you want to turn it on or if you don't want it to turn it on, or you can schedule them at different times. So you can control, you have the best of both worlds. You can continually be updated, never have to go through an upgrade again. And you have the ability to choose when you want to turn those features on. So as you can see, there's a ton of these workspaces. I'm signed on as a system administrator. So as we go through this demonstration, you're going to see everything that the system has to offer. But I don't want that to overwhelm you, because if whenever you turn the system on, whenever your security is role-based, and so when you go into the system, you only see the things that you have the security rights to, as well as you can customize the system and hide and move things around as you want to. Now, I'm going to take you into customer credit and collections workspace. These workspaces were really designed. I actually went into expense there, and I didn't mean to. These workspaces were designed for you to be able to work from them. This customer credit and collections I've gone into because it's a very good example of how you can work in multiple companies at the same time. As David said earlier, F&O supports multi-companies. It also supports multi-countries, over 40 different countries that it has localization and translation for. And it also supports multiple currencies, and I will show you more about that later on in the demonstration. But see, we come into this workspace, and we can see right at the top, we have my work, and we also have analytics, and we'll look at both of these. And just note, you could add a new customer from here if you wanted to. So I've got my company selected here. I should note that when you're working, you can change companies up here, and you're actually working in the company. But what I'm showing you is a workspace within USMF that allows you to also see data from other companies. Again, this would be controlled by security, so it may be that only a credit and collections manager would be able to change between the companies. So what the data that's being shown underneath is controlled by this company. So you see, if I switch over to our orange juice company, you'll see that the numbers change. I don't have any activities. Everybody's within 30 days, so not a lot going on. So I'm going to go back to USMF, to our US entertainment company. And you'll note here too, whoops, jumped ahead there, that you can drill down by customer. So even though I can see all the open activities and cases and customers over credit limit and how many sales orders are on hold, I can drill down and start working into these. But if I'm talking to a specific customer, like if I was talking to Billy Bob, big spender, I could choose that customer, and you'll see that now I can see the aged balances and any information about him. So this is good to know, because while I'm talking to him on the phone, I want to be able to drill down and see, a payment journal that's not posted. And you'll see as we go through these screens that it looks very similar to BC, and that's because it also looks very similar to like working in Excel or working in Word. And you'll see here we can go into our lines and see immediately how much the payment is. And so that's very helpful for a credit person to be able to see that quickly when they're talking to a customer. I'll go ahead and get rid of that, go back to our company overview here. And as we scroll down, you see that I have some analytics here. I can change to different aging definitions and change how I'm looking at these two reports so I can interact. You can embed Power BI analytics into these workspaces as well. And then you can also create what are called lists. And you see, I've got a list here of all my current customers that are overdue in this company, and I could just really start working with them right away. And I can do things like without even having to open them up. I could email a statement to contact them. If I am talking to them on the phone and I want to make an appointment to talk to them again, or create a task for someone else to do, or record an event, like record the phone call I just had with them. This interfaces with Outlook, so these tasks and appointments would integrate with Outlook. You can drill down at any point, so if I wanted to go in and look at Billy Bob Big Spender's account, I can do that. All of the detailed screens within D365 look the same. They have action panes across the top, because Microsoft has really tried to put whatever you need at your fingertips. And so I'll show you a little bit more about that. I can always scroll back if I wanted to see customers on hold. You can see that I can see that easily. If I continue to scroll down, you see that I can also link any reports or anything else that I need to do. And again, trying to put everything we need at our fingertips. So we're going to switch over to the analytics screen, and this is going to show you some of the analytics that come out of the box. They're Power BI, and as you can see here, we've got a number of tabs across the bottom. So I've got a collection overview here, a credit overview here, credit limit, and so forth. And if you'll notice, I have filters. Right now I'm looking at all company information, but I could drill down to specific companies, or I could combine 2 or 3 and just look at data for those. I could look at a specific customer account or narrow it down by customer group if I wanted to. So in other words, being able to interact with these analytics in order to do my job. I can also open up some of these guys. And so I'm looking at a report here, and if I wanted to drill down, like I can see that in Maine, I have one customer who's their balance is $2,500 there, you see, and if I move around, it shows me, and if I double click on it, it'll actually bring me up to this customer showing their balances, and you see that I could schedule events or tasks or appointments, work with collection letters, and post statements, and look at contacts and so forth. So I can actually just, from this report, drill down and start working. And that is the idea behind these workspaces. So I actually went a little too far on that one. So again, workspaces, but there are other ways to navigate the system as well. You can start to type in, you can go to a screen by typing in part of the name, and it will start to show you, and you can see what module it's in, and what it's called. And you'll see we can get to customers from accounts receivable as well as sales and marketing. That's again because I'm going to go through the modules with you, but Microsoft has said, you know, both accounts receivable and sales and marketing share that. So we'll put it on each of those menus so that you don't have to move around. Really trying to save clicks as much as possible. So again, another way to move around here is the navigation pane. D365 F&O allows you to select favorites. So you can always have your favorites here. And just like your internet browser keeps track of the recent places that you've gone, F&O does that as well. This is another way to see the workspaces. And then here's the modules. And I'm just going to go through these with you because I want you to get an idea of the robust functionality that is available within D365 F&O. So we have accounts payable, as we talked about. I'll just show you. I'm going to collapse this. I'll show you, this is the menu structure, and all menus are basically set up this way. You can see workspaces, then you see the things that you use most to the things that you use least with your setups and so forth at the bottom here. So I'm going to expand it all so that you can just take a look at some of the functionality. So you can see accounts payable. We can keep track of course, purchasing and vendors, as well as brokers and royalties and things of that nature. So, so we also have accounts receivable, of course, asset leasing, asset management, full human resource management, cash and bank management, quite a bit of cost accounting, cost management, credit and collections. You know, we just saw the workspace for that, but you can see all of the functionality that is available in that module. We have full expense management. The system can be used on any device that can reach the internet. It also comes with a number of mobile apps out of the box, and you are also able to create your own mobile apps, and I've actually done it. So if it's simple, you don't even have to be a developer to do it. If it's a simple app. You see we have a module for landed cost, inventory management, fixed assets. Master planning has complete master planning functionality. It includes forecasting. You can have unlimited master plans, and it plans resources as well as materials. And on the resource size, it can be human resources, it can be facilities, it can be machines and or tools, anything that can cause bottlenecks to help you with that. We also have full procurement and sourcing functionality, and that includes RFQ management. So if you purchase requisitions and RFQ management, the system does also throughout have powerful workflow engine that is user definable and can be set up the way that your organization needs to do it. As far as product control, of course, we can have products that are tangible products that you keep track of the inventory, service products, or non-inventory products as well. Since D365 is designed to be multi-company, you are able to keep a corporate corporate information at a corporate level for products, and you can pick and choose some of those, but names and so forth, and then you're able to release these products down into the different companies. And when they're released down into the different companies, they can have their own names. Because you would have a product name and an item name, it becomes an item at the company level, and you can have a corporate number and a company number if needed. Certainly each company can have different particulars though, like costing information and so forth. So, but it does allow for corporate control of the inventory. Production control, it has full production control as well. In addition to doing discrete manufacturing, it also handles process manufacturing and batch orders. It also handles lean manufacturing and Kanbans. It also will let you mix mode if you need to. And so handles full robust production functionality, and that production functionality interfaces with a basic warehousing or advanced warehousing if need be. So it can range the gamut there. Also offers full and robust project management and accounting, and in the production control, we have what we call MES, manufacturing execution, but we offer production floor execution, and it can be designed also to allow the clocking in and clocking out onto project jobs as well as production jobs. And you see it's pretty easy to do. You actually have the ability to design either apps or display screens in addition to this as well. So a lot of functionality there. And let's see if there's anything down at the list I don't want. We do have full human resource capabilities, and we do have questionnaire abilities. And one of the things that are really powerful in the system is case management. Let's just go up and look at all cases, but case management can be used to keep track of many things throughout this system. And I'll show you, for example, if a customer calls in with a problem, you can, have a returns case category, and that can start a process tree, and you can have service level agreements of how quickly you want these things handled. And you can have questionnaires, which is what started this, attached to these. So the questionnaire goes out to the customer to make sure that they are happy and that the case is actually solved. But these cases don't have to be attached to customers. They can be attached to vendors. They can be attached to employees. They can be attached to a specific product. And so the collections are cases as well. So you can even use them for IT issues. So they're very, very powerful thing that you can use throughout the system, and questionnaires can be used throughout that. With human resources, you're able to keep track of training, class trainings, skill levels, capabilities, those kind of things also tie into resource scheduling in project management, as well as resource scheduling in production orders. So example, you could create a fairly generic, if your routes are the same throughout multiple companies, you could create fairly generic routes, and resources would be scheduled by skills and capabilities. So you may be able to have one route for a product throughout all of your companies, and just have employees set up with the right capabilities, and that's how the system would find them. So lots of ways that you can standardize and cut it. This product offers lots of ways that you can standardize and cut down on having to keep track of multiple things. Let's see, it does have rebate management, revenue recognition, retail and commerce, service module, complete service management, keeps track of service agreements and service orders, interfaces with projects. Also has a transportation module, time and attendance module, and vendor collaboration, where they can come in and you can see that they can answer requests for quotations or deal with consignment inventory, or look in at review purchase orders. So I want to take you in now to a screen. Let's go into, we'll come down here to the accounts receivable module, and we'll look at all customers. Now, a lot of the screens that you would work with in D365 F&O look like this. And to me, it looks almost exactly like Excel. You come in, you've got a grid across the bottom with columns and rows, and across the top, you have your action pane. We are in all customers, and you see that I could edit an existing customer just by highlighting that row. I could choose to create a new one here or delete one here. I also have all these options. So if I go to customer, if I want to see their balance or see a forecast, if we've got a forecast in for them, if I want to see any attachments, I can see that here. I can also see that up here with the paperclip. And I want you to know this is document management and it's used throughout the system. You can put an attachment really just about on anything. And if you have attachments, this paperclip will come up with a blue circle and the number of attachments will show you. So I didn't even have to open that to see that there's 2 attachments. And if I click on that, then I'm going to be able to see that how many attachments, and I can go back and forth between them. I can see notes. You'll see that I can attach images, notes, URLs, and you can actually create your own categories here. So if they're engineering documents or questionnaires or things like that, and then we can actually grab any attachments needed by these types should they need to be printed out along with other documents, invoices, things of that nature. So they're pretty powerful document management information there. So from here, like I could just send a catalog to the customer. I just have to choose a catalog and it would email it. I could choose the contact and it would email it straight from Outlook. And I'll just take you through here, see if I was on sales, I could do a new quotation or sales order, without even having to change screens. I could look at, let's see, let's go down here to Billy Bob Big Spender. I could create a new sales order, sales quotation. I could look at any related sales orders. Let's see if we have any sales orders. Let's look at all sales orders related to Billy Bob Spender here. And it's much faster than this. Our demo environment's not as fast. So here it takes me, and you can see, I can see all of the orders, including returned orders from Billy Bob Big Spender. If I go backwards, I go back to where I was. I could create an invoice from here. I could look at existing invoices, any collection information. If there were any projects or if I wanted to create a project, I could do it straight from here. And so as you see, I go through service as well. I go to general, I can have a case, I could create a case attached to this customer. I could also have activities, schedule an appointment, create a task. Maybe I need someone in our organization to do something for this customer. And I can handle all of that without even having to open the screen. You'll also see that on the right-hand side, we have this fast tab information. And you'll see that if I refresh this here, then it's going to give me some statistical information about Billy Bob Big Spender. And I can even see recent activity, relationships. So if Billy Bob Big Spender is also a customer or a vendor in another company, I'd be able to see that. Also any credit information and so forth. And I can do all of this without even opening up the customer. Now, as Eric showed earlier, we can customize these screens, so I could insert columns, I can hide columns. Anytime you see view details, I can drill down into a subtable from here. I can also filter. If I turn this guy on up here, I can filter and I can add, I can filter by fields other than what I have in my rows. And if I come down here, you'll see that I even have other tables attached. D365 or Microsoft has tried to say, well, if they're looking at customers, they might need to look at this information too. So quite often you're able to add in columns from other tables, and this almost becomes like a reporting tool. As Eric showed, you can open in Excel, which this allows you the ability to post back, or you can export to Excel. So I'm going to turn these guys off. And I'm going to go ahead and drill down into Billy Bob Big Spender so we can see what a detailed form looks like. Notice that my action pane across the top did not change, so I can still do all of these things without them being here. But you can see all of the information here that I have about the customer is on these fast tabs, and there's some of it that I can see without having to drill down. You see here what currency we deal with this customer in, and payment term defaults and things of that. As if you want to open up, you can see information like here's the defaults that I can have on a sales order. So when I create a sales order, all of this information, if they have any special pricing or any of that or tied to any special pricing, that would come up in default in the sales order. These defaults can be changed later, but again, Microsoft is just trying with F&O to make things faster and to lower the amount of clicks throughout the system. So I do believe, David, that with that, I am ready to hand it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Hope.
And we do have a few questions for you guys as well when you're ready.
Okay. Great.
So our first one here actually looks like this one is for you, Eric. Is there a list of plugins connectors available for the system? Specifically, this is a BC company that is using a system called Benefit Point from Vertip4. They're wondering if there is a BC connector to that or another way to create a connector.
Yeah, so very good question. It typically is dependent on the system we're trying to integrate with, but that is one of the strengths of Business Central is integrating with more vertical type solutions. So if Benefit Point has the ability to connect via APIs is typically the best way, then it's pretty straightforward. If they can't, then at a minimum we can get down into doing some flat file transfers between systems. But ideally, if we need to have any kind of single or bi-directional integrations, we would want to try to leverage APIs for that.
Awesome. And how does, let's see, Carol, I think you were talking a little more about F&O at this point. How does it manage credit with one customer across several companies?
Well, you would be able to view it, and you could do. That's a good question. You would be able to view it, but without moving that credit, it doesn't really. I mean, you just would be able to see. You could move the money if you needed to, so you would be able to see it. I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, if you have a follow-up question, go ahead and put that in the chat as well.
Yes, please.
So here's another one. How does benefits and labor recruiting work with third-party payroll processing? Ooh, another great question.
For which product?
I believe this one was for F&O, but probably a good question for both of them.
It works very well with, as Eric said, with APIs. It can, we can interface with just about anything. And I would tell you that most of the customers that we've implemented for sure do use a third-party payroll, and there is some overlapping. So we would, during business analysis, figure out what made sense to be kept where. What things needed to overlap. You certainly could have those updated. You'd have one that would be your point of truth where you entered the information and just have it update the other system. But we've certainly done it with overlapping capabilities before.
Perfect.
And with case of Business Central doesn't have real strong HR capabilities, so most of our clients are using something else for human resources and payroll, whether it's an outside system or there are add-ins, which we haven't really covered, called ISVs or independent software vendors or third-party products. but we would need something like that to really kind of handle that functionality.
Yeah. Does BC have a requisition management function?
So it does have a purchase quote function, which isn't necessarily identical to a requisition management function. So it depends on the functionality you need, but out of the box, we can do a quote, which can turn into an order if you have, some type of a department head or some user that needs to make a request for a purchase. Otherwise, there are, again, add-ins for it, more of that true requisition system.
D365 does have true requisition, and a requisition can actually be turned into a request for quote, and then that from a vendor, and then you can manage it. It can come back. You can choose which vendor, which will turn the purchase requisition into a purchase order for that vendor, and more. So, next question.
Let's see here. I think going back to that F&O question about credit, to understand it a little better, you would need to split up credit line between companies, not one credit line for a customer doing business with several entities. Is that correct?
Yes.
Another great question. How long does it take to fully implement F&O or BC?
I want to say how long is a piece of string, but I know that's not nice, but it really does run the gamut. I have actually been a part of a F&O implementation that took about 6 months. And so that's pretty quick for F&O. That's pretty quick for any system implementation, I think. But I also have been part of an F&O implementation that took 3 years. And so it really depends on the size, the scale, how many companies, how much customization is and integrations are needed, a number of elements. And I'm sure Eric has something to add to that.
Yeah, the BC side and this is going to be one big difference between BC and F&O, is our projects typically fall between 3 to 9 months. The 3 months are kind of the basic financials, GL, AP, AR, and then the 9 months is if we're getting into more of field service management, manufacturing, project accounting, but that's our typical range.
Awesome. Here is another for BC specifically. How are invoices and vouchers entered into the system? Is that done manually or can you scan them? What's that practice like?
Yep, so they can be scanned in, but we would need some kind of an OCR service. There's multiples out there. One we really like is a product called Continia, which has a very strong built-in connection with Business Central, and that handles kind of that full optical character recognition processing. So very possible to just scan them in and have it be more automated, but that would require, again, a plugin.
It doesn't for F&O. F&O just recently added that functionality. I do not know anybody that uses it, though, to be fair, yet.
Okay.
There probably is. I mean, I'm just not aware.
Yeah.
But it's new.
Ooh, here's another excellent question for clients who are already on Dynamics GP. Are there conversion utilities for GP customers?
I do not know of any, but we've certainly on the F&O side done a number of GP conversions, and F&O has a functionality, data management functionality that allows it allows imports and exports really easily. In fact, I will tell you that in the last few years, it's really more possible for non-technical people to do data implementation. I mean, yeah, data migrations than it used to be, quite a bit more. So.
And with BC, that's definitely a migration path Microsoft is pushing for. So there is a cloud migration tool built into BC that connects to your GP on-premise SQL Server. There is some system requirements on that, and they're constantly changing. But last I saw, was you need to be on SQL 2016, and I believe GP 2018 potentially are the minimum requirements. But that does take chart of accounts, master records, open AR, open AP, open sales orders. It does migrate some history into what I would call more like a smart list table. It doesn't migrate true history over. So there is another migration path if you want to take your GP database and migrate the whole thing to Azure SQL services. There is a tool, or I'm sorry, it's called the Azure Data Lake. There's a tool for that as well, but most people are just kind of doing the standard GP migration. There is one for QuickBooks Online as well that Microsoft's built into Business Central.
Awesome. We got time for a couple more here. So this is a good question, kind of comparing, which one is going to be a little more better for my specific requirements. Is there sort of a general ballpark as far as a number of employees or revenue for BC versus F&O? I know that you talked about that a little bit at the beginning, David. Any one of you have a thought on that?
I think it has more to do with the complications or the business requirements personally than it does with dollar volume. I mean, there's obviously a threshold because with the dollar volume comes users, but what do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I would say that's true. There does seem to be a certain revenue threshold where F&O starts becoming a more logical fit because it typically translates into a more complex, larger organization.
Right.
I have that number off the top of my head, but Microsoft's got some kind of loose boundaries around that.
Any more?
A follow-up question, are there any requirements that you consider deal killers for either ERP?
For F&O, I would say not. In my career, it's the most robust. It even works, for the public sector as well as the private sector. And I've not seen a place where it wouldn't work, other than maybe being too much for an organization that is either small or have simple requirements, straightforward, simple requirements.
Yeah, and a big one for us is government cloud. So when we talk about public sector, if the requirements are we need to run it on government cloud, Business Central is not licensed for government cloud, so that would be finance and supply chain. And I think it's in the title as well. If you have complex supply chain requirements, that's typically a deal code killer for BC as well. And even if you start getting into like the chemical manufacturing, batch manufacturing, Business Central can handle fine as well. But if you start getting into some more of that complex manufacturing needs, that's where we're typically looking at F&O as well.
I didn't say this, but it just popped in my head. F&O has full quality management as well, kind of late.
Yep.
Awesome, super helpful, you guys. We've got a couple more questions. What we'll do, you guys, if we'll follow up with you afterwards, because we are short on time, and I know David's got a little bit of an exit for us here. So we'll put an end to the questions, but we will follow up with you with the rest of these answers as well. David, go for it.
Thank you everyone for sending over those questions. So really just to wrap up today's webinar, we had two great high-level demonstrations from Eric and Hope around integrations, the ease of navigation, and featured functionality of Microsoft's ERP options. I really want to just remind everyone that when you're selecting the right Microsoft ERP, there are a variety of factors to consider, including your organization's requirements, your budget, and your resources, of course. But not only is it important to ensure that you're taking these into consideration, but really the decision of selecting the right partner, right? Boyer has been implementing and maintaining long-term relationships with over 450 customers since 1994. Our team's focus has always been around Microsoft Dynamic products, and it's our coworkers and employees that helped us become one of Microsoft's top partners of the year for 2023. So I know that selecting the right ERP for your organization may be a challenge, but please allow Boyer and Associates to be your trusted advisor to really understand your business and provide those informed decisions to really help your organization meet your goals. So once again, just want to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your questions. And we really hope that you were able to, get a better understanding of which Microsoft ERP is right for you.